Welcome to Backstage with Becca B with special guest Jillian Butler. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Backstage with Becca B. On this episode, this Boston Conservatory grad could most recently be seen playing Cosette on the national tour of Les Miserables. She's also been on the national tour of Cinderella and was on the second national tour of Wicked, where she understudied both Glinda and Nessa Rose. Please welcome Jillian Butler.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for joining me.
Good to see you. Yeah, it's so good to see you.
How has this time period been for you? You were still on tour, right? When all this hit, right?
Yes, March. It seems like so long ago, far off land. Yep, March. I was in Durham, and that's when everything happened. So crazy to think back on how that all happened.
Yeah. Did they tell you a couple weeks ahead, to expect?
Let's see. They told us, everyone had kind of had word that something was happening. We kind of had word that maybe where we were, they would shut down that city. And we were going into the weekend shows. I remember I was in an Airbnb with 5 other people in the cast, and we were all just watching the news 24/7. And then we got word that we wouldn't be doing the weekend shows. We would be coming back in a month. We had a week of shows, and then we already had a 3-week layoff planned, which was we didn't have shows booked for 3 weeks. So we were okay, we'll all meet back up in the next city in a month. And we were okay, great. Little did we know. Little did the world know.
Yeah, little did the world know, honestly. And it's felt like March since then, honestly. Getting into theater, have you always known that you wanted to be a theater performer?
I say that I was always a very hyperactive child. So my mother put me in dance lessons when I was, I think about 4 or 5, put me in a tap class, and it really helped get my energy out. And I was just very theatrical as a kid, just super, super hyper till I was probably 12. So it was a good way for me to let out my energy in dance classes. And I grew up then doing dance competitions. So that helped me get a lot of energy out too. And then in middle school, I kind of found my way into a production of The Music Man. And I had a little tap solo in The Music Man. And I kind of caught the theater bug there. So I think that's where it really started. But I never really grew up listening to musicals until I was probably in 7th or 8th grade. And then I was whoa, what is this magical world of theater? And it kind of started from there.
Right? It's funny because I feel you're someone else has previously said their first show was Music Man as a child.
Yeah. Hey, the classics,
It's there's been a lot of Chorus Line and Music Man. And I feel that's something you wouldn't think of a child being part of, but
yeah, who's doing Music Man in middle school? Brentwood, California was doing it.
Yep. When was the moment that you kind of found out that you could sing and that, you could be on stage and captivate audiences?
Yeah, so that kind of goes hand in hand with when I started dancing. So I was super serious about dancing. I was on 5 or 6 dance competition teams, or one competition team, but I had 5 or 6 dances in a weekend with a solo and 2 duets. So I was dancing. And then I got injured and I tore my ACL on stage at a dance competition in 8th grade. And I was at the time doing Peter Pan, which was my first really big music show, and music show, musical, all the above. And I remember just being so devastated because I was I can't dance for a whole year. And I was I thought I was going to go into school for dancing. I thought I was going to be a dancer. But it was honestly a blessing in disguise because then lessons, but because I couldn't really dance, I was able to really focus on singing. And then I had my dancing, I had singing, and somehow my love of singing just started going even higher than my love of dance. And I guess they kind of all then like melted together in a weird way. But that's when I really started finding my love for singing, in that at the time was like a horrible thing in my life, but ended up being the biggest blessing. So yeah, that's kind of what happened.
It's like moments like this right now currently that are like secretly like you find the silver linings in.
Oh, totally. And I think it took me probably 5 months into this whole thing happening to really find the joy in letting this just be what it is, because we will get into it later, but it was very hard to like accept what was happening with Les Mis and everything. So definitely silver linings everywhere. And that was one of the first silver linings I think I experienced as a young adolescent. Now I look back and I'm like, thank goodness I tore my ACL, because I would have never really probably pursued singing in the way that I have.
Yeah, and I mean, you're a fantastic singer and you went to school for theater. What was your when did you like know that like you could go to school for theater, and like how did getting into you went to Boston Conservatory, right?
Yes, I did.
How did you audition for it? How did you get in there?
Yeah, so that was also kind of funny because I didn't really know anything about unified auditions. I didn't know anything about musical theater auditions. I auditioned for BOCO, but I almost missed the deadline for the application because I was kind of like a hot mess express senior year. Like I was like, I think I want to do musical theater. I was having like a back thing, or I had like a really bad pinched nerve, and I was like, well, I don't think I can go to school all the way in Boston because it was like a heavy dance program, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't. But so I auditioned there and a few other schools, but I had no idea what unifieds were. Like I knew my audition for BOCO was in Los Angeles at Unified, which I was like, I don't know what that is. So when I got there, I was like, I miss all these other opportunities to audition for all these other schools. But I did like a few drop-ins. I think I did like an audition at Florida State or something when I was in LA. I was like, it's like a drop-in fee to come audition. I was like, great.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try that. I didn't have a headshot. I printed my headshot in the lobby of the hotel. Yep.
Love it.
We've come a long way.
Yeah.
But I think no one was auditioning for musical theater schools in my town really. So it was definitely a unknown territory, and I just got some songs together, and my mom was the biggest blessing in that whole time of my life too, because she was like, you can really like do this if you want, like very supportive. And I had no idea what I was doing. So yeah, going back, I probably would have auditioned for a few more schools, but I'm very happy with BOCO and that it worked out. But yeah, I missed the deadline, so I'm glad that they extended it and I was able to apply, because I don't know what would have happened.
And I'm sure my electricity is going out and stuff. Wow, that was weird.
2020.
Yeah, 2020 is happening in my house. So, what was like a valuable experience, like a valuable lesson you learned in college?
Oh, geez, that's a good question. I would say, looking back, just how much the school really prepared me for the real world, because BOCO it's a conservatory, but it has a lot of students. So usually conservatories like 10 to 15 in the same class. Our graduating class, I think, was about 60 students. So what's great about that is you get the conservatory's feel, but you have that competitive like nature, which it wasn't like competitive like Glee or anything, but it was like a very welcoming and like a very good nurturing environment to get a taste of what the real industry is like. So I think that was something I took away as a professional into my like career. But I was also part of something called the Conservatory Cabaret, where we would go and perform in like nursing homes and battered women's shelters in Boston. And like for me, that's like one of the best experiences of my time there, just because we were able to like perform in different environments and perform for people of all lives and all walks of life. So that was I think the lesson out of that was just to know theater is alive and well anywhere you make it. So that was a great experience for 3 years there.
You probably spread so much joy to people.
And they spread so much joy to me. Like it just, when you're in school too, you're so busy. So to like get a taste of like other people's perspective, and like we are so lucky to get to do what we do. And even when it was hard and like you're in that student stressful lifestyle, it's like you have it so great. You just need to breathe, and like you're so lucky to get to be going to school and be busy. So it was good balance.
Yes, exactly. And like as you mentioned, you're balancing so much in musical theater school. You're like with doing productions and also studying. How did you balance all that?
It's so crazy because I can't even, if I was as busy as I was in school, like I don't know how we did that. I think it was like ignorance is bliss. Like we were like, this is just how it is. Like I'm going to be working on this song and these sides and all this material all at once, and I'm going to be reading 3 plays by Friday. It's like that's not normal, but it also was, I think with your last question, like it prepared you so much for the real world. Not that you're doing that much like you are in school, but it just, you're getting so much thrown at you that it just prepares you for really anything that comes your way.
And how do you think being at Boston Conservatory helped you with getting your first role on a tour, which was, I mean, you were in Wicked, which like that's insane.
Yes, I think Boston prepared me so well for my career and just as a professional in the industry. And we have a showcase at Boca, which was awesome. So we were able to do a 2-minute number in front of agents and casting directors. And we also had like workshops our senior year or last semester. So we were able to work with some of those agents that were going to be coming to our showcase and kind of form a relationship with them and have them see us before our actual showcase. And I got an offer from the agent who I'm still with now, and I love them so much. So that was just like a nice stepping stone. I don't think you need an agent necessarily. It's not like a make or break it. There's so many people that have made it for themselves without that, but it was a great stepping stone for me personally. And so from there, I was able to start getting auditions with them. And yeah, so I think getting signed with my agency was a big plus out of the conservatory for me.
When you got the audition for Wicked, what was your reaction?
Well, so I graduated from Boston Conservatory and I was working at North Shore for that summer. So all my friends were moving to New York and I was like I was just itching to move to New York too. But I was like, no, I have a job. I was doing Shrek at North Shore. Like this is a credit, like right out of school.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And then I moved to New York in like August of 2015. And then I did A Christmas Story at Paper Mill and worked in New York for like that December. And then my first tour was actually Cinderella. So when I got the audition appointment for Wicked, I was on tour with Cinderella. And it was like, can you send in a self-tape for this? And I was like, okay. And I had already sent in a tape the year before and had heard nothing. So I was like, oh, this is weird. Like it's coming up again. So it just goes to show, like, you never know. Always say yes, I think, to auditions when you can. And you never know when they come back around. And just because you don't hear anything or they say no, doesn't mean they're not considering you for something else that you're right for later down the road.
And I'm sure being on tour with Cinderella first helped you kind of like get used to the tour life and like what to expect from future tours, because now you've done Wicked, you were doing Les Mis, like life on the road has got to be crazy and something you have to get used to.
Yeah, I'm really glad that Wicked wasn't my first tour actually, because that was such like a huge show in itself. And Cinderella was great because I was in the ensemble and I didn't have as many responsibilities. I didn't understudy in that show. So I was able to really just like learn from the others around me who have been in the business way longer than I had. And what's crazy about Wicked is I auditioned from the self-tape, and then a week later I got a call that I had gotten the job, and I had never gone in for
I was like, what is happening? And I think because I was in Cinderella, which was dancer track, I never had to do a dance call for Wicked because they knew I was in a dance show. I don't know if that's really what happened, but I think it did help me get the job for Wicked because I was in like a dancer singer track. I don't know. It's just kind of crazy. But their casting's very good at their job, so they can put things together.
Yeah, I mean, probably being in like in the ensemble helped because they were like, okay, so she can dance and she can sing. So were you offered Glinda and Nessa Rose to understudy when you auditioned for Wicked?
I was, and I had never done any Nessa material, so it was kind of this weird thing. But again, I had gone in for that for Chelsea before, and for I think Newsies, and they'd see me do like some self tapes for Newsies, and that was like the same voice type as Nessa. So I think that they put a lot together to cast what they need in the moment. And this is just for my own, like, maybe this is how it happened, because I'm still like, to this day, how did that fall into my lap like that? I just think all my cards that it worked out. But yeah, I was offered the understudy for Nessa and for Glinda, and it was like one of the best phone calls to this day.
Yes. And then, I mean, how soon after did you go on the tour and like start being in the ensemble of Wicked?
Yeah, so I had found out, and I think I had like a month left, and Cinderella was actually closing. So I was only contracted for the last 5 months of the tour, and I ended up doing it for like 4.5. And they had someone come out to like fill in my ensemble track for the last 2 weeks who had been a swing, I think, before, or had been in the show before, since that tour had gone for like 2 or 3 years. I'm not quite sure how long since I joined, like at the very tail end. But I then had about a week and a half from leaving Cinderella and then starting Wicked. So it was sort of, but what's funny is I went home and Wicked was closing in San Francisco, and I'm from the Bay Area. So I secretly went and saw Wicked with my mom, and I was like, I'm gonna be in the show. So, and then I joined in Dallas with Wicked.
Yeah, where I am right now.
Yes, and I love that theater there.
Yes, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Before I get more into Wicked, who was your first Glinda Elphaba you ever saw?
My first Glinda, I think it was, I'd never seen the show until I saw it in San Francisco. Like I had seen bootlegs and stuff. So my first Glinda was Amanda Jane Cooper, who I adore.
Yes.
And my first Elphaba was Emily Cook, who I also am in love with.
And it's like, seeing the show for the first time has such a big impact on theater people's lives.
Oh yes, totally. And I feel like I'd already seen it because I listened to it so long, and like I had watched so many clips of it on YouTube. So I was like, oh, I've seen it, but then to see it live was just no comparison.
What was your favorite ensemble dance number to be a part of?
One Short Day. One Short Day. And the opening, because the thing about the opening, it's so cool that we're all in it together, and even a lot of the principals are in it as well. And when the curtain rises and you're just like holding the pose, it's so magical, and you see all the green lights and you're like, goodness.
Yeah.
just like that.
Did you experience like no fly shows happening and have to like during Defying Gravity have to like get on the floor ever?
Yes. And I didn't know what a no fly show was. So when it first happened, all you heard was someone on stage right go, plan B, like super calm. And I was like, what does that mean? Everyone's like, oh, okay, we have to go. And I was like, what's happening? He's like, okay, just go. Like I've been told in rehearsals like this might happen, but was never like, this is really what you do. So when you're in the moment, you're like, and it was just so crazy. But I also love that Jessica Bosk, when it happened, I was right under her, and I was just like, how is she singing these notes? Like, she's so amazing. I was like, oh, So
Like
it's
what?
definitely crazy. Yeah, I was like, oh, she's such an amazing vocalist. Oh, we
Oh,
don't
I'm
like her.
supposed
Get her.
okay, never mind. I'm not supposed to be praising her.
Yeah, but it definitely is kind of disappointing when that happens. But hey, it's live theater, so it could be worse.
It's what makes live theater live theater. It's like it's always
Yeah, and
different.
my third time ever on for Glinda, I debuted in Houston, but um my third time ever on as Glinda in the same weekend. So it was still super new. The bubble malfunctioned when I was supposed to get back in it at the end of the opening number. And I remember hearing the stage manager's voice in my head who helped me learn the track. He just said, if you ever see the bubble off the ground, do not try to get in it. Like, do not get in it. So I just heard his voice in my head. I was like, everything was slow motion. I was like, do not get in the bubble. Do not get in the bubble. So I just turned around down center and I strutted to the front. Everyone was there for me too, because it was just everyone was like, what's happening? I was like, I don't know. But that happened.
Wow. I feel like that doesn't
Yeah.
happen much.
I know. So for it to happen, my third show ever as Glinda was definitely kept me on my toes. But there's also something very beautiful about the end of the show, like when she's supposed to go back in the bubble, to be on the ground with everyone. Of course, that moment she's supposed to be in the bubble and it's gorgeous, but there was something very, dare I say, grounding, cliche, but being on the ground with everyone. And I don't know, it was a very beautiful moment too. So I'm glad I experienced that, even though that's not supposed to happen.
I mean, what a unique experience. So, do you remember the first time you went on as Glinda?
I don't remember much. I remember being like I was calm in the quick changes, which I was very surprised. Like it was very fast. And I do remember during Popular, I was like, this isn't good, but I feel like I was like watching myself, like it was just not real. It's like I was watching myself have this experience, but I was also trying to be in the moment, but I was also just trying to like not screw it up because there's just so much happening. But I definitely remember the moment in the bubble too before I came down, and I was like, okay, can't get out of the costume now. Here we go. No turning back now. You're hooked in. So I just remember everyone being very supportive, and any debut in Wicked, especially for understudies, is like the cast and the company, especially the Munchkinland tour, just make it so special. And I think that company is amazing.
And have you always been able to sing like that high? Because the Glinda songs, they're so like, and Cosette songs, which I'm gonna get into later.
Yes. What's hilarious is like in college, I was always like, I like to say, Thoroughly Modern Millie, there's Millie and there's Dorothy. And I was always like, I'm a Millie. I like to sing legit, but I never really thought it was something that my career would fall into, which is very funny because I think that I was putting those own barriers on myself, not realizing I do have this other part of my voice. And I found that in school too. I had a vocal teacher who, Carrie Deal, who I just adore, and she also trained vocal majors too. So I really found my inner soprano through her, and I'm so grateful for her. And I think it just something I began to trust. And when I got cast as like the understudy for Glinda, and then singing even the ensemble soprano 1 for Wicked is very challenging and very demanding and also incredible. So that was also 2 years of my life where I was working that muscle. And then when Cosette came along, I was like, I'm an Epponine. I'm not a Cosette, I'm an Epponine. What? Like, what? Was I crazy? I was like totally in a different world. I was like, I can't sing Cosette. That's too high. But again, just goes to show like it was just an insecurity in me that I wasn't allowing myself to really say yes to it. But when I finally did and was like, no, I can do this. Let me like see how it goes.
don't put boundaries on yourself because you will surprise yourself.
Yes, and I mean, you sound. I mean, for those who haven't gotten to see you as Cosette yet, which like hopefully they will. Maybe not. I don't know what the future holds for
Yeah,
like.
we don't
Hopefully they
know,
will.
but
I mean,
yes.
your
And now I
version
love
of the
singing
song is
soprano.
stunning.
Thank you. And I love singing legit now. I think it was just something that I really grew up singing, like more belty mixed songs, and I was never really experimented with that side of my voice. And now that I do, I'm like, I love singing legit music
Yeah.
even more than like pop music or, you know, the big belter songs.
Yes, and before I get more into Les Mis, what was your favorite Glinda song to sing?
Ooh, I would say I just really love singing the opening. I do like floating all those notes. I love the opening, and I love For Good, I
Yeah.
think was always like it's a moment in the show where I love that side of her Glinda's story as well, but then there's something about For Good where it's so simple as well. So there's something in the simplicity that I think you can like really relax and just live in the moment even more. And that song, I could listen to it every day, to be honest. I love that duet.
Yes, it's beautiful. And like, how can you not cry during that?
I know, it's just so touching the way it's written, and it's just gorgeous. And I just love a female duet. I love a female duet.
There's something just like powerful about the storyline of the friendship that Elf and Glinda have.
Absolutely. So good.
And when did you first go on as Nessa Rose, and what was that experience like? Because I know you went on as her too.
Yes, that was actually planned. So the Nessa had dates to go away for a wedding, I believe, or just had a weekend of shows where she was going to be gone. So that was nice that I was able to prepare for that, but also makes you kind of crazy because you're like, I have to be ready for this. I can't get sick. I can't do this. So I actually like now when I was an understudy, I'd like when I was surprised to go on because you just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But for Nessa, I was able to prepare and my parents were able to come and it was really great.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Did you have a method for learning both those parts on top of the ensemble track that you had?
Well, what's great is I actually joined with Olivia Valley, who is like one of my greatest friends and biggest treasures that I took away from that show, my time there. So she was learning Elphaba, I was learning Glinda and Nessa. So I was able to like really have a partner with me who we would just like work on the stuff. I remember we were in I don't know if she talked about this. We were in Houston. We were about to have our put in, and we held a dress rehearsal in our hotel room. I put numbers out because they have like numbers on the deck, and I was like, okay, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like kind of crazy, but we were just like, we want to really be prepared. And like, and she like stood on my bed as like levitator, and it was also just like fun to like do it together. It was hilarious. I was like, okay, we're gonna do the choreography, like we got this, like we're gonna do this. So I had her along with me for that learning process, and I think it helped me learning both roles because I was able to like for that shiz scene in the beginning, I like knew Nessa's lines, I knew where Glinda came in, and I was able to like kind of put it together. So yeah, they also said because Nessa's not usually blonde, but I found it interesting playing a blonde Nessa because that dynamic of like looking up to Glinda and like Glinda helps Nessa in a way, and like I think Nessa kind of idolizes her and it's like Elphaba, like stop. But because she was blonde and I was blonde, it created this whole new like dynamic for me where I was like, I want to be like Glinda, like so.
Do you think
I don't know.
I was gonna say while you all were rehearsing, the people around you like got a free show, so that's probably cool. Like the people next door. And
oh yeah, you know they probably heard us. They probably complained, but that's okay.
like what's going on next door?
Yeah, we're like we have to prepare for our put in, so it was really fun. I remember that night. It was so funny.
Do you think in real life you're more of a Nessa or a Glinda?
I think I'm a little bit of both. I love Glinda, obviously. I'd like to think I am like Glinda because she's looking for the good in people, even if she doesn't really realize that in the beginning of the show. But she goes on such an amazing journey. I know a lot of other Glindas talk about that too. It's like such a gift to play her. But I also really like Nessa because she has that side of her where she doesn't really take any what's the word? Like she just says what she wants to say. And I think I found that side of me in quarantine, to be honest. Like I think right now I'm probably more like Nessa. Like she's probably more like reflective since she's gone through like kind of crazy circumstances. But I also obviously love Glinda and I like how she's so positive.
What an iconic role to play. Like I'm
Yes.
something that you're still like, wait, I played that role.
Yeah, and I think Nessa is underrated too. I think Nessa is such a dynamic character, like so many layers to her, and she doesn't have as much stage time, but I do think her like backstory and what she goes through, even though she can be a little cray cray with
I mean, yeah.
Buck, but for good reason. She really loves him, and I think she falls hard, and she's like, "This is who I want to be with. I love you," and I think that's kind of telling, even though she doesn't really. She goes for her impulses a little too far.
Yeah, she's a whole character. She's a very three-dimensional
Yeah.
character.
Yeah, I agree.
So then how did Les Mis come about? Because Cosette.
Yeah, that little show that happened too. So I was on tour with Wicked and I got a email from my agent saying, "Hey, would you want to submit a self-tape for Cosette?" And I was like, I remember it was a weekend in Minneapolis where we had so much rehearsal because the creatives were in town. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, I have to learn this music because I didn't know the music. I was like, I have to learn these songs. But we have this rehearsal. Like, how am I going to do this? And I was living with Garrett, who was in the show with me, and he's awesome. And he was like, "Jill, you're such a Cosette." And I was like, again, I really think I'm more of an Eponine. Like, I'm not a Cosette. He was like, "Jillian, you need to audition and just put this stuff on tape." And I was like, okay. So then I think what stops me is when I commit to a self tape or I commit to an audition, it's like I am all in or it's not worth it in a way. And like I get very like with self tapes, it's this blessing and a curse because you get to do it so many times, but then you also have to watch yourself and you can get a little bit too perfectionist. And I've definitely learned along the way to how to balance that a little bit better. But at the time I was like, okay, I'm committing to the self tape. And I'm glad I did because then after that, I had a few callbacks over the next 2 months to ending up booking the job. But it was definitely a wild ride for sure.
So were you still doing Wicked the whole time you were auditioning for Cosette?
Yes. So I was flying in. I think I flew in probably 4 times. And my final callback, I had to go on that day for Glinda. And so I was flying back from my final callback to play Glinda. And I think I got in like 2 hours before the show to play Glinda. It was very crazy. But in the moment when you get so far through an audition process, you start to really like see yourself in the role, and the creative team, they want to see you. So I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it there in person. But it was nice because we were in Buffalo and in Boston. So it wasn't like I was flying from California. We were on the East Coast, but it's crazy. And that's what a lot of actors do. It's like you just make it work. And when you're in the moment, looking back, I'm like, how did I do that? I'm like, whoa. But life finds a way.
Where did I get that energy from?
Yeah, for real. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do that for like, good job. It worked out. It was worth it.
When they told you that you were gonna be the lead Cosette on the national tour of Les Mis, which is such a successful show, like what was your first reaction and first thought?
Well, okay, so with every callback, like we were talking about earlier, I was like, I'm not a Cosette, I'm not a soprano, which is just, I've gotten past that now. I'm like, why did I think that about myself? I think it was because it was scary. It was like a doubt. And that's like, again, a lot of actors, we're people too. Like we have doubts, we have flaws. We like, it's not always like, oh, daisies and roses and like, I'm perfect for this. It's like, no, we have insecurities too. So I think I just let that voice get a little too loud, which I've definitely learned along the way. Do not listen to that voice. But it was just like an amazing call to get because I had had so many callbacks and auditions, and I spent so much money flying back and forth that to finally get the validation that it was worth it and that I was going to be playing like Cosette in Les Miserables was so amazing. And then it was like, no, I actually have to do it. Oh my gosh. So it was like all these high emotions. And then, is this really happening? It's like, did that really just happen? So yeah, it was it was, and it was also in my college town, Boston, when I got the call. So it was this weird, like, I'm also in the city where I like trained for it and like kind of became who I was as a performer and like kind of found my voice. It was a very full circle and uh definitely cried and screamed and it was really exciting.
Yes. Did you get to see Les Mis before you got cast in it, like as a kid or anything?
I saw the revival on Broadway with my family, second row, um, on House Left, and that was just amazing.
And
Amazing.
little did you know probably at the time.
Definitely never thought I would be in the show. Although I did audition for it, now that I remember, for it was like a Broadway open call. And I went in and it was like you could only sing I think it was 8 bars. I'm not even kidding. Because there were so many people. It's like you can sing 8 bars. I like waited all day to sing my 8 bars for I think I don't know who it was. Maybe it was Caitlin Shaw, but maybe not. I don't know. I blacked out too. It was like 8 bars in and out, done. I think I sang like the end of You Don't Know This Man from Parade. It was like a belty song and it's like, and you don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You were like, oh, okay.
So I did audition for Les Mis before, but that was short and sweet.
But then you got it. How many years was it?
Probably like when was it on Broadway? I think probably like 3 years later.
But if you
but I never really knew the show though. Like I'd seen it, but I wasn't like someone who grew up singing Les Mis, and I think that helped me book the job because they were looking for this new fresh version, not like one that had been done before. So I think it was definitely a little bit more of a contemporary take on the show, which I think helped me because I literally went in with no expectations of like who Cosette was, who had done it before. So I think that really helped me like put that out the window. So it was just whatever I thought was Cosette from the text and from what I knew to be true from the text.
And I was gonna say, if you had gotten it on Broadway at the time, then like you wouldn't have gotten to do like Wicked, Cinderella, all that.
Totally. And that's like, I think whenever you don't get something too, it just is a way to shift towards something that is supposed to be for you. And I definitely think, I'm glad everything has happened the way it has because I've loved how it's worked out, I guess. And I think too, having understudied helped me prepare for Cosette, not knowing at the time. And also then with my understudies, I feel like I had a better understanding of like what it takes to be an understudy and then being rewarded like with doing it 8 times a week. I then got a perspective of people who I looked up to before me who were principals on shows like Amanda Jane Cooper and Jenna Claire, and like knowing what it takes to really do it 8 times a week was like also another big like eye-opening thing, but I was able to step into it with better perspective.
And how you kind of addressed this earlier with like the fact that you hadn't like known Les Mis to the extent where like you were like a super fan or anything. So how did you make an iconic character like Cosette your own and like
Yeah, I think that is a testament to the creatives because in the room they were very in there for like and they were very like bring your own thing to it. And they, at one point in one of my auditions for when I was doing In My Life, they're like, you're so funny. You're so like just bring a little bit of that to it of like her curiosity for life and obviously to go to the extremes so they could like see different levels of me, I guess, but they really just wanted to see who you were. So I think that having that going into the rehearsal process was very freeing, and it wasn't like you have to do it like how all these other people have done it because no one's you. So that was very nice to have from the start in the rehearsal room and in the auditions, to be honest.
I'm also not sure if anyone else has mentioned this to you, but like normally I feel like people who are like Mis fans are like rooting for Eponine the entire time because like Eponine's the underdog. But you kind of your take on Cosette had me rooting for Cosette.
That means a lot. Thank you. I actually had someone else say that in San Francisco. They were like, I'm not usually team Cosette. I don't usually like Cosette, but you made me see her in a different light. And that's like the biggest compliment as an actor. So I'm like, that's what I was trying to do. Or, you know, she isn't just this single layered character because she goes through a lot of trauma in her childhood. But what's hard about her is that she doesn't have as much stage time and you have to like, you're shot out of a cannon, literally. You run on. You're the last principal in the last 10 minutes of the act. And it's confusing for people because you see her grow up, but you don't see the jump in time. It's just like, oh, you see her in Paris and now she's older. I think that's Cosette. So you really have to like the moments you have, really just like do your best to bring as much to it. So I definitely think I understand though why people are so team Eponine because I love Eponine too. But I think it's also a testament to who I was working with, Josh Grosso, who like in the rehearsal process, they wanted it to be more like not flirty, but more young and contemporary, not so like, and now we're singing about love.
Yeah.
You know, so it was definitely more alive. And I think that helped the audience take it more seriously and really see just two young people figuring out what love is for the first time.
Yeah, because like I feel like in other productions it's like, okay, so they're suddenly like they just like looked at each other for 5 seconds and now they're in love.
Yeah, and I think when you know the story too of Cosette, you can like understand where she comes from and that she's just curious for life and she's been, you know, sheltered her whole life. But I think what I was trying to do with In My Life, the song, is not get too serious, like really discover like that what that means to her. It's very exciting. It doesn't have to be so like serious. It's like she's just a young person excited for life, and I think bringing that energy to it versus just like so serious all the time really helped the audience relate to her a little bit more.
And Les Mis and Wicked are both very different shows, but they're both super successful shows. What do you think makes both of them so successful and like long lasting?
What a good question. You're so good at this.
Thank you.
I think it's just both shows in itself are very timeless. So I think with Wicked, it's so relevant now with what's going on in the world. And I think with Les Mis, it's so relevant with what's going on in the world. It's like these themes you cannot ignore that they've been timeless. And especially with Les Mis, like redemption and trying to fight for what's good in the world and having grace and forgiveness. Like these are just themes that we need. And then with Wicked, it's like having like misunderstanding someone and like judging them on how they look and just so many things that I think no matter where you are in your life, there's something in each show you can find to relate to. And I think that's what makes them so powerful. And then put it with a masterpiece of music, and then you're just a recipe for lifelong and long running shows.
Oh yeah, they're going to be around for years to come still.
Just epic shows. Just so good.
Two of my favorites.
Me too.
And you've played a lot of iconic roles, obviously, whether it's been on a tour or whether it's been regionally. So what's a character that you haven't crossed off yet on your bucket list that you'd want to play someday?
I want to play Clara in Light in the Piazza. I'm working on some of the music just in quarantine. I would love to sing that role and just be in that show too. I love that character. And I would love to be in a Rodgers and Hammerstein show again. I again just like really embracing my legit side of musical theater. I would love to be in any Rodgers and Hammerstein show again. So
Ooh.
yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
you'd be good in either of those dream roles on your bucket list.
Yeah, or I'd love to play Elle in Legally Blonde. I've been listening to
Yeah.
Legally Blonde a lot in quarantine. It just like gets me pumped up and I'm like here for it.
Good music.
So I
Yeah.
love like that kind of show. So yeah.
If you could revive any show that's closed too early, what would it be?
That closed too early.
Yeah.
I don't know if it closed too early, but I really wanted to be in Something Rotten because I also love to tap. So I was a tap tutor at Boston Conservatory for 3 years. That was also an amazing part of my time there. So I love to tap, but I haven't been in a tap show in a while. So I'd love to be in that. Or what's another show that's closed? Let's see.
Have you done regional production of Newsies or anything?
No, I would love to be in Newsies. I'd love to be Catherine. I love her song. Love that. I'd love to do Shrek again. I like low-key love Shrek. I just love the music and I think Fiona is so funny and just I really miss doing I think because I did Cosette for so long, I really miss like quirky roles because I'm kind of quirky in real life and Cosette was really a blessing in my life because it helped like ground me a little bit more and she was very like a calming role aside from like having to float a high sea every night but I think I miss doing like the comedic roles too.
Yeah, like skipping around on stage dancing to Popular. Dancing. whatever
Yeah whatever that is, frolicking, whatever.
Yeah that scene, I mean, one of the best. I have to go back because how did you make that scene? Like, how did you make it your own? It's such a hard scene to, I feel like, not copy exactly what other Gwendas in the past have done.
Totally. And I think for like the first part of rehearsal, it felt a little like, I don't really know where I'm going with this. Like I'm just hitting the marks kind of. I didn't really find who she was for me in the time I had there, probably until like my like 5th time going on. I was like, oh, okay, like I'm finding now the more I stop trying to think of it how it's supposed to be and just like bring my own quirkiness to her is when I really was like, then you are getting the laughs. Not that you're trying to get laughs because then it doesn't work, but just when you find that flow of just like being yourself, and honestly less is more, I think, too, with some of her stuff. So I think that was like a good balance to discover. And every Glinda is so different. And I think that's what's so great about that number. It's like even if you try to copy it, you really can't. Like it's just not gonna work because the way I do it's gonna be different than how Becca does it, or it's just not gonna be a carbon cut copy. And who wants that? You know,
No theater fan wants a carbon cut.
no one wants that. That's just so fun.
For the 95th time or something. Like they don't want to see the exact same thing they've seen before.
Yeah, and then I think sometimes you can overcompensate and then you're trying to do something so different. You're like, and it's like, whoa, but you just have to find the balance of what works for you and what feels right, you know?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, this time is a tough time for people who have studied theater and people who are wanting to go into theater. What advice would you give someone who's like up and coming, studying theater in school, just graduated during this time?
I think, honestly, you just have to stay positive first, but also allow yourself to feel everything you're feeling. And like if you're sad, be sad, but also know that you have the power to create your own work and your own art, whatever that means. Like, don't stop singing, don't stop taking classes online, because there are so many outlets now to keep learning. I mean, I've been taking voice lessons consistently during this time and trying to keep up with everything. But also, I think it's not a bad reminder to maybe work on other things, like other things in life that you like to do too. Not that you're forgetting about theater, but just to then remember that you are a human being. It's not always about theater all the time. And I've heard that from a few casting directors too, in some classes I've sat in on. They're like, just be a human. Just, if you don't feel like doing that today, it's okay. Like, I would love after quarantine to ask you in a room, what did you do during this time? And you're like, I learned to cook, or I did this, or I took a class in this, just because acting really is just human experience. So how can you make yourself a full human
During-
even outside of theater too? And it all will come back to help you as an artist. But also, again, there's so many great classes online to take. So I know it can be discouraging. But what's also great about it is now everything really is online, even for auditions. So it's a good way to work on that skill set. And like you heard from my journey, a lot of it happened from self-tape. So it's definitely not far off from 2020.
Yes, and I mean, you're with Broadway Plus, right?
I am. Yeah, I just joined. So I think that I'm going to get my prices down lower because I think they're kind of high right now. So I'm lowering those with them. So yeah, I'm on Broadway Plus, and I've been working with some people just privately too before I joined them, especially with college auditions. So I love working with people for that.
So where can people like get in touch or like sign up to like learn from you and be inspired by you?
Yeah, they can go to my Instagram too. I have my emails linked through that. You can email me through that or get in touch with me through Broadway Plus. So either way. But thank you for asking.
Of course, I'll put links and stuff in the description of this. Whoa, it got blurry. I got a new camera and it's like really HD. So,
Oh, what camera? I'm starting a YouTube channel soon, so I'm very excited.
it's like, oh, you are?
Yes, I am. I've always wanted to, and I've just been putting it off. So I like have the name, I have it like what it's gonna be, but I'm very excited. It's just like, YouTube is its own world as well. So I think you just have to start. There's no right way. You just have to get a camera. I'm getting one for Christmas, and it's gonna happen.
Yeah, you have to start. You have to believe in yourself, and I mean, make content that you believe in, and I think that's a good start.
Yeah. What camera did you get?
I got it's called a Logicam. I don't know if I'm saying that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
I
So
got it.
exciting.
Best Buy, and it's
Nice.
very good because my
Good.
camera.
Yeah, the quality is great.
Yeah, my camera just went like completely out on my laptop the other day, so that was fun.
Love that.
Is there anything else? I mean, besides YouTube channel classes that you've been working on during quarantine, whether it's theater related or not, that you'd want to talk about?
Um, I've been watching a lot of movies and TV shows, which I know is like what people are doing, but I wasn't doing that a lot on the road. And I think really what we have through like Netflix and Hulu and all those streaming platforms, you can learn a lot from just watching shows. On like acting and how, like, what style do you like, and like learning from your favorite actors. So I've been really taking a lot from that. And YouTube. Again, I love YouTube. So everything is out there on YouTube to learn a new skill, to learn a new class, like a new tap routine or anything. So that's been great. And then I take lessons with Mike Reckles, Matt Farnsworth, and a new teacher I've been taking with Joan, who's amazing. So I know a lot of people like are doing lessons online. And Raquel, she's the Carlotta on Broadway, is doing a lot of great master classes too. So she's a great resource.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
good to
so
know.
that's a list.
Yeah, that's good to know from people during this time for sure.
Yeah.
What do you to wrap up, what are you most excited about when theater can come back?
I think just there's nothing like live theater. I think being with everyone again and creating something together and the magic of theater. I know it sounds so cliche, but it is magical. And I think we need to see shows again. I really think that's something that we're missing. And I think when it comes back, it'll be incredible. And it'll be, I think what this time has made me really realize too is I think everyone can attest to the fact that you can take something that we know for granted so easily. And I think when you have that job or you have that time in a show and you're seeing a show live too as an audience member, just how precious that moment is and how special and great, like how grateful we should be to be able to experience that. So I think it'll be very, very exciting when we're back.
It's gonna be very emotional. People are gonna be sobbing.
Yes, I just can't wait to even get back in the audition room again. I think that's something that a lot of people miss, just that live human interaction. So it'll be a special day.
For sure. I cannot wait. I hope it happens sooner than later.
Me too.
I
Fingers crossed.
try to be optimistic, but like I don't want to be too optimistic because then you get your hopes up.
I know it's hard, right? Because you want to be realistic, but just one day at a time. And like what you're doing with YouTube is great way to like stay connected to the theater world. And I am trying to do the same, just one
Yeah.
day at a time. And now we have the holidays coming up, so
Yeah, so that's an
we'll
exciting.
get a little holly jolly. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Christmas song?
Oh, I love what's it called? I think it's just called the Christmas song. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Yeah, I think that one's so good. I'm just makes me feel cozy. And then I love rocking around the Christmas tree because do you have a favorite Christmas song?
All of them, to be honest. I start listening to Christmas music in like September, to be honest.
Okay.
People are
Yeah,
like,
I'm like July, so
no time is too early to listen to Christmas music, especially in 2020.
no rules. Like we need to feel joy somewhere. So Christmas is there. Yeah.
Yes,
Team Christmas.
always. So where can people find you on social media to keep up with what you're doing and to find more info about your YouTube channel when it comes out?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram and it's Jillian, my name, __ Butler. And I haven't announced what my YouTube channel is yet, but I will put it there when I start it. And that should be soon because I'm actually going back to school soon for something else, just a short program, just to get another skill set. And again, I think it's good to just expand on life experience. So it's going to be documenting that on top of theater and on top of my life and on top of like audition tips and stuff like that. So it's going to be a bunch of things. So I'll have more info on that on my Instagram, and then I'm on Twitter if you want to hear me tweet about food. I talk a lot about food, so.
I love that. I love that stuff. You're very witty on Twitter.
Thank you. Yeah, Twitter is a very interesting world, but I think it can be really funny and just it's like Facebook, I guess. So you just kind of be like, oh, I love that chicken nugget I had today.
Yeah. You just tweet whatever comes to your mind.
Yeah. So we all stay connected somehow these days.
I love that you're going back to school for something. That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's in the theater world too. I'll say I'm going back to school for like wellness and beauty and skin. A lot of people who I've toured with always ask me like, what do you use for this and what do you use for that? So I think it'll go hand in hand with like where my channel's gonna go with beauty and Broadway and then me, Butler. So there's a little hint. So it's gonna be like my life and we'll see where it goes. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you for talking to me on this today.
Thank
I
you
feel
for
like-
having me.
Going.
Thank you for watching this episode of Backstage with Becca B. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Becca B Talks TV. Or for more exclusive content from this interview and more, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Backstage with Becca B. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!